You're listening to the Morphology Podcast. Thanks for tuning in to the Morphology Podcast, aka Murph here to share interviews about biking experiences from cyclists who have pedaled to places all over. Each week, we'll get to know new people and explore new destinations to ride your bike. As you listen to these adventures, you may wonder, why haven't I done that yet? The Be Good Foundation was founded by Rebecca Rush, who, among many things, is an ultra-endurance athlete, adventure cyclist, a world champion multiple times, and the star in a film called Blood Road. At the Be Good Foundation, the bike is the center of their work as a catalyst for healing, empowerment, and evolution. They provide grant support to a number of organizations that use the bike in just this fashion. One such recipient is today's guest, Megan Lebeth. Megan is currently on an epic bikepacking adventure, riding from New York City to a cycling event in Idaho put on by Rebecca Rush called Rebecca's Private Idaho. Megan has a mantra, one rotation at a time, that to her is a reminder of the power of persistence, the importance of mental health, and the healing nature of cycling. She's raising money for the Be Good Foundation along the way so that there can be future Be Good Foundation scholarship recipients. She's going to tell us about her adventure and experiences as a solo traveler, making her way to Idaho. You can donate to her Be Good Foundation fundraiser at thebegoodfoundation.org/from the Big Apple to the Big Potato. You can also follow along on Megan's journey on her Instagram account, Eat, Play, Bike. Here's my interview with Megan. A big warm welcome to Megan of Eat, Play, Bike. How are you doing, Megan?
I'm well, just resting up after some storms today, so I'm doing really well.
Good, and I'm so glad we could connect where we both have phone service and you're in a fairly quiet place because you are in the middle of riding your bike across the entire country.
Yes. Well, I mean, there's gonna be a few states I'm gonna, I won't make it quite to the West Coast, but
Yeah.
almost. Yeah, I'm on my way to Ketchum, Idaho, for Rebecca's Private Idaho race that's happening over Labor Day weekend. So I am currently slowly but surely making my way across these states. So,
And on you're self-contained, right? You have everything that you need on your bike.
Yes,
Wow.
I'm completely self-contained. Everything is on the bike. Basically, my whole life is packed up on this bike because when I left New York, I left for good. So I will not be returning to New York after this ride is done. Everything's on the bike,
Wow.
tent, stove, food. Everything is just, it's heavy, but it's getting me across. It's getting me down the road. So wild to think that everything I pretty much own is on this bike right now. So.
That is really wild. Yeah. And I mentioned Eat, Play, Bike. That's your Instagram account. And I, of course, have been following it. And that's how, or you reached out to me, I think, but I've been following you. And I think it's amazing with everything that you have on that bike, you are still able to make yourself a hot cup of coffee every morning.
Yes, and waking up into wherever I wake up in the mornings, like my mornings when I'm on the road are my most favorite time. Is my mornings because that's when I'm kind of slow going and I'm just like enjoying the morning, taking my time to reload the bike and pack everything back up and have my oatmeal and and my coffee and just being able to kind of just enjoy my surrounding for a little bit. Because sometimes, when you're on the road, you don't get into camp until close to dark. And then, you don't really get to just kind of sit and relax, I guess. So my
Right.
mornings that's my coffee time is my relaxing time for sure.
And anybody who has done any sort of bike packing that, pitches a tent and sleeps in it, you kind of know that when the sun comes up, you're pretty much going to get up too, because if the heat hits that tent, it goes from really comfortable to a sauna in a matter of minutes, in my opinion.
Yes, that it does. And yeah, when I was in Canada, ironic, the time that the sun was rising, I felt was like so much earlier,
Oh,
like at 4:30 in the morning.
oh my
And I'm like,
gosh.
why is it so light? And so, you kind of try to get another, hour sleep or so, but typically, you're up pretty early, and not that I'm on the road by 7 or 8 o'clock by no means. um but yeah, the sun definitely will get you out of bed pretty quickly,
Yeah,
so.
yeah.
Mhm.
Well, one of the questions I usually ask everyone I interview really isn't valid for you, because I typically say, where do you live and what's the cycling like there? But you said that you were in New York and now you are on to the next chapter of your life, so to speak. So, will you kind
Mhm.
of tell the listeners maybe where you are now and what it's like there, and a little bit more about where you're going?
Yeah, so yeah, I was living in New York City for about a year and a half now. I kind of had to stay a little bit longer last year after I broke my elbow.
Mm,
um and just to kind of touch base on the cycling culture there in New York, it has such a history. It's deep rooted, the messenger life,
mm-hmm,
the alley cats, the just it's a huge part of just New York City. And as a cyclist, you're like, oh man, like, because I envisioned myself living in New York and doing all of these rides and just bombing down the streets, and which I did and everything. But it's just such a different culture out there,
mm-hmm.
and I absolutely loved it so much. But yeah, I once I took on this tour to fundraise for the Be Good Foundation. As I'm on this tour right now, I'm sitting here, ironically, in Rochester, Indiana,
Oh, I was going to
not
say
New
Rochester, New
York.
York. You haven't gotten very far.
I know, not far at all. Which I did have a really wonderful time in Rochester, New York. I met up with Joanna with the gravel cycling collective out there, and had a great group ride and everything. But yeah, so now I'm in Rochester, Indiana,
Mm,
making my way to St. Louis right now. I will be meeting up with another Be Good alum. She was a scholarship recipient a couple of years ago. She went to RPI. She had a great time. So I'm excited to meet her, and hopefully have a nice group ride there in St. Louis. And actually have some family there, so I'll be able to catch up with them as well.
mm.
So I should be there in St. Louis by this Friday. What I'm kind of hoping for.
That's the plan, at least. But that's the fun
Yeah.
of bike packing and being on an adventure, especially solo, because you can kind of, like before we push record, you talked about how it stormed really bad there this morning. And so instead of you hammering through rain and flood, you just stayed put for a few hours.
Yeah, you just don't ever know. It's unpredictable. The road is so unpredictable. And
Mm-hmm.
luckily, I mean, I'm not out here like right now, there's not any real mountain trails or anything like that. So, I am riding a lot of country, county roads,
Mm-hmm.
and there's some adventure cycling roads, trails that go through the state and everything. So I've been kind of on some of those. But yeah, I mean, it's unpredictable. You don't ever know what you're going to get.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I mean, it was, 2.5, 3 hours sitting under shelter, watching this river just literally like keep rising, so it's like, okay, like how
Did,
much longer is this going to take? And
wondering if you needed flotation devices on your bikes or something.
yes.
So you
Yeah.
mentioned Rebecca Rush and her
Mm.
event called Rebecca's Private Idaho. Of course, I think any cyclist knows who Rebecca Rush is, but she has won all kinds of different championships and awards, and she's big into gravel now. And this event called Rebecca's Private Idaho is, God, it's been on my bucket list for a long time. And I did an interview with Fierce Hazel, and
Okay.
her and I talked about going to RPI and like getting all the way to Idaho. I never thought to just bike there like you're doing it, but
Yeah, bike's
it's
there.
it's so cool. So can you explain how Rebecca Rush has anything to do with Be Good Foundation, and then you also mentioned briefly something about a scholarship. So tell us about that.
Yeah, so I mean, as a woman cyclist, I'm always finding my inspiration in other people that are just out here doing really amazing things and bringing awareness to the cycling community and pushing it forward. So, and as you know, Rebecca Rush is just, I mean, she's just awesome.
Mm-hmm.
She's just a baddie, and she's done so many amazing things, and she's an ultra endurance athlete and cyclist. And yeah, so the Rebecca's Private Idaho has been going on now for, this will be the 12th year,
Oh wow.
um, in Ketchum, Idaho. And these are just, of course, all of the trails that she's been riding for years and years now. And so she kind of opened that up to having this race that she has now
Mm-hmm.
again for 12 years. And of course, if people do know who she is, they understand like how amazing of a person that she is and what she does and what she gives back to the community.
Mm-hmm.
So like with the Be Good Foundation, it was started when she rode the Ho Chi Minh Trail in Vietnam, going Vietnam, Cambodia, and Laos. I believe that was in 2015. There's a really great, amazing documentary. If you don't know about it, it's
Mm-hmm.
called Blood Road. You can find it on redbulltv.com, or you can find it on the Be Good Foundation's website,
Mm-hmm.
and it's free to watch. But it shows you the journey of this 1,200-mile route that she does, and she actually goes back and she just kind of give a little brief history on it. Like, so her father was in the Air Force, and unfortunately, his plane was shot down in 1972
Mm-hmm.
during the war. So this journey for her, going along the Ho Chi Minh Trail and actually finding his crash site,
Mm-hmm.
is just one, it's like, wow, like this, just to have that connection with it and with her father, because she was so young when he passed away. So he signed every letter home. He'd always sign it, Be Good,
Mm-hmm.
Stephen, so that's kind of where the seed was sown for the Be Good Foundation, and it's been around for several years now. And so the money that is raised throughout the year, she gives back in grants to other organizations that push forward, cycling, and then also the scholarships, which I was surprisingly a recipient of this past year. So Jay Peterberry was on his last year. He was riding the Great Divide Ride, and that was his project to raise money for future scholarships. And I'm not for sure if you know this, but he was actually hit from behind.
Yeah.
It kind of ended his ride. So, but fortunately, there were 7 of us that were awarded these scholarships, and were recipients of this bikepacking. And it was the first bikepacking scholarship that they have done through the Be Good Foundation.
Ah.
So, yeah, so, it was kind of interesting. And, I didn't know if I was going to take the chance and apply for it, because I'm like, I'm a nobody, and I'm not a great athlete, and but it's one of those things where I did apply for it. They saw something in me, and as
Mm-hmm.
they quoted in the email, they love to see a good dirtbag adventurer. So, um, because if you know me, you know that I don't ride. I'm not your typical bike packer. And by that I mean I don't have gears. I'm riding fixed gear, actually. So I guess I like a challenge. But so yeah, there's these scholarships that are out here that the Be Good Foundation puts out, and is just, for me, it's just an organization that I absolutely just, I want to see just out there all over, and everybody know about it.
And then you are doing this bike ride to the RPI, the Rebecca's Private Idaho, but then you're also raising money for future Be Good Foundation recipients or scholarships?
Yes. So
Ah.
when I originally had my first phone call with the executive director, Era, of the foundation, we kind of joked about like, well, I'll just ride to, I was like, her race isn't until August, right? And I'll just ride there, And so it kind of turned into, they were like, if you're serious, we could really do this. And I was like, oh yeah. Like, and so my mind just started, going about like how and what I could be doing to, pay it forward as they did with me and selecting me as a recipient, as one of the scholarship recipients. So I just want, to raise as much money as I can across the next several states. And next, I guess I've got about a month and a half left to get to RPI.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I'm just really wanting to bring as much awareness as I can about the organization and what their mission is, which a bicycle is the catalyst for healing, empowerment, and evolution. So I'm sure with all of your adventures as well, Murph, that you understand that part of it. It's just like, yeah, like we're out there pedaling away and we get stopped all the time by people at convenience stores or at
Mm-hmm.
stop signs. And they're like, what are you doing out here? It's like, oh, man, let me tell you why.
I love on one of your posts that you mentioned something about, you must have had something set out on a picnic table and people thought that you were a homeless person and they were nervous that you were either in crisis or needed to move along or some sort.
Oh, yeah. So I was in Angola, in Indiana, and amazing little town. It's so cute. But yeah, there was a storm that was coming in, so I was like, okay, I'll go hunker down. And this was a storm system that had came off of that hurricane from like I guess the Gulf or something. And
Mm-hmm.
mind you, I haven't been watching news or watching too much of the weather and things of that nature. But yeah, so I'm waking up about 7 that morning, and then like I'm just sitting in my tent and I'm under really big. It's a nice metal pavilion, so it's
Mm-hmm.
really big. But then I just start hearing people and car doors closing, and I'm like, okay, what's going on? And I start hearing all these kids, and so I kind of just peeped out my tent door, and I'm like, oh, there's like something going on. And come to find out, they ironically they were a vacation Bible school.
Oh, so they're having like their daily camp?
Uh-huh. In this pavilion. And so, I'm just like kind of hanging out, I'm just, making my coffee. And but yeah, then I just see the Parks and Recs guy pull up, and he comes over and he was like, hey, I just, he's like, I was already by here this morning. I noticed that you were, obviously asleep in your tent. You're just sitting here trying to wait out this storm. I could see by your bike that you weren't, he was like, these ladies called me because I needed to come and talk to you, because they felt like you were a homeless person. And I'm like, you know anybody would know that. I mean, I don't feel like I've seen too many unhoused people riding around on surleys or anything, fully
Right,
loaded
right,
portly bags, so um
right.
so he got a good laugh out of it. I got a good laugh out of it. So it's just, people are just so quick to judge, of
Right.
like
Yeah. They don't know
they
the story.
hmm they must be homeless, or you know obviously they didn't see I have a QR code on the front of my rack bag that is to my landing page for the Be Good Foundation.
Oh,
So
yeah.
had they just snapped a pic of it, they would have been able to know that, oh wow, she's out here doing good,
Right,
like
right.
yeah. So it was funny.
I'm going to ask this again at the end, but will you tell everybody the where to go if they want to learn more about Be Good and maybe donate to your page?
Absolutely. So the Be Good Foundation, you can go, it is thebegoodfoundation.org. And that will take you, of course, to their website and everything.
Mm-hmm.
And then you're going to see Big Apple to RPI Ride. And they can hit that link, which will take them directly to my landing page and kind of gives you a brief, like, little backstory of why and who I am and what I'm doing and where I'm going, and kind of the backstory of my mantra, one rotation at a time.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, so it's just the begoodfoundation.org. And but yeah, and once you get to my landing page, there is a donation part of there, part on there that you can just click and donate away, and help other people get out here on some of these rides and events. And I don't know if
Yeah.
you noticed, but like, one of the recipients, Eden, he is a 15-year-old kid that just finished the Tour Divide, and
Oh,
that
wow.
15 years old. I'm like, man, I was not riding bikes at 15, and
Wow.
so, and he's the youngest person to ever do the Tour Divide, and I believe he finished it in 16 days
Oh
and
my
some.
gosh.
So, that's what these scholarships are for, is to, if you have the wildest, idea or event in your head, and you just don't think that you could ever, like, fully do it, then that's what these scholarships are for.
Mm-hmm.
It's to apply for them, get yourself out here on the roads. When I was home in March, I went to Mid South. I had met a person there, met a really awesome group of people, and I was talking about the Be Good scholarships and all this, and just about a month ago, he actually messaged me on Instagram, and he was like, I haven't put it out there yet, but he was like, I applied for the scholarship and I got accepted. And I was like,
Wow.
woo, so it just made me so happy for him, and knowing that they're going to be at RPI this year, and I get to hug them again. And so it's just like taking those chances of when you do see opportunities. You can't sit here and say, oh, well, I don't have all these accolades. I'm not an athlete, or, I could never, they won't pick me, or,
Yeah.
it's all those like self-doubt things that we do. And yeah, I was, once I read that, I was just so stoked for them. And yeah, and I get to see them at RPI in
Yeah,
a
that's
month and
cool.
a half. So yeah.
And to back up a second, you are doing something that most people wouldn't dream that they're capable of doing. So you're much more than just your average Joe on a bicycle. You're doing something epic.
Well, I mean, yeah, but I also just love riding my bike. I mean, and it's not all rainbows and, sunshine and rainbows out here either. I mean, just again, like today, I mean, I was stuck underneath the pavilion for 3 hours with, if it was just raining, like a light rain, that
Mm-hmm.
would have been fine. But I mean, there was lightning. It was an absolute downpour. But, I mean, there are some struggles out here on the road. It's definitely, I mean, it's not inexpensive in any way. Like,
Mm-hmm.
people think, oh, well, it must be so easy. And I'm like, man, like my last tour I did, 2/3 of my budget went towards camping because I wasn't quite confident in stealth camping.
Right.
And as a woman, it can be a little bit daunting, and you could be, it's a little intimidating when you are solo sometimes. And see, I think I'm just a little bit more, I think we're all probably a little bit hyper aware of our surroundings, especially when we're backpacking, and especially solo. So
Well, and just once it's dark and you're just in a flimsy tent, and the only thing between you and whatever's outside is just a little teeny zipper. So
hmm
I am the same way when doing bike packing. I want to be around, a public place, so to speak.
hmm yeah, I try to stick around to, at least around some towns, or maybe off of the trail. Or
Mm-hmm.
I mean, when I was in Canada, they wanted $65 a night to camp.
Woo!
And I'm like, I'm a bike packer. I'm not a big RV, a big dump truck, pulling my RV into
Mm-hmm.
your campgrounds. I'm literally probably going to only use about $5 worth of water and electricity. And I
Right.
just want a safe space to know that I'm going to be okay. And so, that's probably one of the most challenging things out here on the road, is just finding where you're going to be, and where you're going to stay that night. And sometimes you're not going to push out as many miles as you thought that you were going to do that day, because of circumstances. Like today, the rain. It's like, oh great, like now it's 3 o'clock. Where am I gonna, like, how much further to the next town, and am I going to find a park? Am I going to be able to find somewhere that I can just throw my tent up and be okay for the night, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I mean, it can be a little bit challenging out here, but overall, it's not bad. It's not bad at all. But I think that's too where that's why Rebecca really wants to see more women out here. And I know there's plenty of women out here bike packing and doing these ultra endurance races and just pushing themselves. And it's like, man, it's like amazing. So, and yeah, just encouraging women and other people that want to be doing this, and they're like, oh, well, what about, don't you get scared, and what about people? And
Mm-hmm.
it's one of those things where we just kind of have to just trust ourselves, trust our judgment,
Yeah.
and just go for it, because if not, we're going to be inside the house not riding our bike,
And
so
just dreaming that you wish you were riding your bike. So yeah, yeah.
hmm
And
yeah.
I'm sure that you have some good stories about people that you've, interacted with, but I really want to know more about your bicycle because you said fixed gear. So
hmm
wow. So you have all that weight on the bike.
hmm
Can you tell us a little bit about the bike?
Yes. I am riding a brand new 2024 Surly Straggler,
Oh, nice.
which I have to give a huge shout out to Bobby Wintle at District Cycles in Stillwater, Oklahoma.
Mid South
He's the
guy.
he is the mastermind behind Mid South, and so just kind of for months and months, I was looking for a frame, particularly a used frame, because I didn't have all the funds to just go out and
Mm-hmm.
buy a brand new bike. I just didn't. So I finally just kind of, after Mid South, I got home back to New York, and I just reached out to Bobby and I said, look, like, I am struggling trying to find a frame that, one, has horizontal drops that I would be able to ride fixed. And that's the dilemma with riding fixed, is you kind of need horizontal drops to be able to, keep your tensioned and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So, and yeah, he knew I was going to be doing this tour, and with the Be Good Foundation, all this stuff. And so I woke up Easter morning and he had responded and he said, let's get you that straggler. So, and, because I was just like, man, you've got one there at the shop. I could really, if you wanted to help a girl out and sponsor me, and or just give me a really nice discount, because it's not cheap. This, like,
Yeah.
it's not cheap riding bicycles. And if you're trying to get geared up to be self-sufficient and be on the road for as long as I will be once I get into RPI in August, it's not cheap. It was a $650 frame that I didn't have to worry about. That was coming out of my budget for this trip. And so, yeah, so Bobby hooked it up, and then I just, I mean, I cried whenever I read that message, and I'm not going to cry on this podcast because I'm a crier, but we joke that I'm just the crybaby, but it's just, I feel so grateful, so,
Right.
yeah, then 2C's Cyclery there in Williamsburg, Brooklyn area. Amir, who is the owner of the shop, is an absolute gem of a person and bike builder. And when I was making notes of what I wanted this and what I knew that I would need to build this bike out, I literally put in parentheses whatever Amir suggests. And so,
Oh, nice. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, this is basically just a fixed gear Surly Straggler, and I'm running a 42-22 gear ratio on it. And with the weight on it, it doesn't seem to be as spinny with the on the flats.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be really great once I get into some of the mountain climbing, which I'm not for sure if I'm really looking forward to in Colorado, because I've never done anything like that in my life.
Oh,
So
wow.
yeah, so people think it's crazy, but I'm like, whether we have gears or no gears, guess what? We're going to be biking whether or not, you know, again, with or without the gears. So I know that I'm going to be facing a lot of challenges once I get into some of the more climbing areas, but
Mm-hmm.
but yeah, this bike, it's, yeah, I'm running disc brakes on it. It's completely just it was a dream build. It truly was. And Amir he reassured me about running tubeless and my disc brakes, and just made me more confident about riding tubeless, and, just knowing that, I could fix it if need be, so,
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
like, it's just one of those things. I've done a couple of other tours, fixed gear. So, it's just kind of how I wanted to tour.
I think it's
So,
awesome, and we have to stay in touch because I wanna hear after you get through those mountains what's it gonna be like.
oh
But
my gosh. Well, just keep following along, and you're
yes,
gonna
exactly.
be like, I'm just gonna just, I'm probably gonna be shouting, and, because Era has also teased me about, riding fixed, and she's like, "Girl, you're gonna want those gears," and I'm like, "Well, yeah, I'm sure I will," but, again, Amir, he really set me up on my gear ratio, and I think it's going to be a happy medium once I get into that climbing portion of this ride.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
yeah, I mean, I've got about 2,200 miles of warm up before I get into the climbing. So hopefully,
That's one heck of a warm up.
right. But yeah, so I mean, the bike is just an absolute beast. Its name is Ramblin' Ragsley, and she's been just an absolute joy to ride. So again, I mean, I wouldn't have, like, had this such a nice build had it not really truly been for Bobby over at Mid South, or at District, and, he's just a gem of a person as well. So
Yeah, for sure.
yeah, yeah.
And, this is the bike that you'll be on riding, having it next to you every single moment of your day and night. So you have to have it be a bike that you love. So you picked the
Hmm.
right one.
Yeah.
How about some like fun stories about people you've met or things that you've done? I know before we pushed record, you talked about going kayaking, which is kind of a fun break in the bike action. But what other stories do you have?
Oh my gosh, like, man, it's wild. I've only been on the road now for 4 weeks, but it's like almost every day you're meeting and having these interactions with people. But
Yeah.
I think it would probably be my reverend that I stayed with for a couple days in Canada, and she was amazing. And I was coming into Port Dover, Canada, off of Lake Erie, and there was a street, and it was just, I thought I was in San Francisco for a second because
Mm.
it literally just went straight up, and I was like, oh my gosh, like, there's no way I'm pedaling up this. So here I was pushing this bike up the hill, and this woman and her dog were they're walking down the hill, and she's like, you got this, go girl. Then she's like, I did this about 40 years ago. I did the loop from, like, Vancouver to Toronto. And so we got to talking, and she's like, are you staying in town? And I was like, no, I was trying to push out a little bit further because at this point I'd only been on the bike for like 16 miles.
Oh, sure.
So it was still kind of early in the day. And I was like, I don't want to cut my day short. And then she's like, well, if you change your mind, I'm just right up the street, and I've got a backyard you can camp in, and shower, laundry, anything you'd like. And it's like, oh man, like, so at that point you're like, and she was like, it's Canada's birthday on Monday, and I was like, oh, okay, like, I'm gonna be in Canada for Canada's birthday, which is just a couple of
Yeah.
days
Yeah.
before 4th of July, and but her house sat right on the street where the parade came down. So I kind of tootled around the town for a minute, and then I went over, and, to the house, and she comes out with a big smile, and she's like, oh man, I'm so glad you came. And I was like, yeah, I just actually I could just use like a just kind of a day off of the
Sure.
bike.
Yeah.
Sometimes we deserve those days off, and we sit on the back porch just hanging out, and she's a reverend. We kind of were sitting and chatting, and just hanging out, and the parallels that we had with our backstory and our history and our, just growing up, were very similar. So it was
Oh,
just a really nice, just kind of like someone that you could, speak to and talk to, and knowing that she's a reverend, it just made me, I don't know, it was just kind of one of those things of like, man, like, I just feel okay talking to this person, obviously, but it's just the unexpected connections that you have with each individual person that you come across. But
right.
and then, so yeah, her and her her partner were leaving the next day, and so the next morning we wake up and I'm getting ready to like just, tear down tent and just get along on my way. And she's like, well, actually, do you think you would just like watch Zelda, her dog? And would you just want to stay here? She's like, do you have to leave today? And I was like, "Well, no, I don't have to leave, but," and she's like, well, just could you watch the house and Zelda, and you can just kind of hang out for the day and do the parade. And I was like, okay, sure. Like,
Heck yeah.
just met you yesterday, and kind of hung out, and it's just like, okay. So then, yeah, I ended up hanging out with the dog, and taking Zelda for a walk and watching this Canada's birthday parade, down the street. And they came back the next following day, and so it was just, it's just those kinds of stories of where you would never have thought that meeting a reverend would have led to, oh, within 24 hours, you're house sitting and dog sitting, and
Right. And
you're doing all these things. But
probably a forever friendship.
yes, that most definitely, she was amazing. But it's one story out of so many.
Sure.
I've had people, and just like the kayaking. I mean, I was rolling west, and I was like, okay, like I'm kind of like just a heavy headwind. I'm gonna try to just see if I can't find a campground somewhere. And I saw that there's this little town called Mongo, and there was like this trading post kayak and canoe campground. So I rolled over to it, and it's shut down. It's after 6 o'clock. It's probably almost 7 o'clock by now, but the office is closed. And so I just kind of rolled through the campground area, and there's only two campsites that have people in them.
Oh.
And yeah, it was completely empty. It's a Wednesday, I think it was. Yeah, I think it was Wednesday. And I met these two guys, and I was like, "Do you know if there's any like after hours number?" I was like, "I just don't want to throw up my tent, and then they charge me like $100 tomorrow or something." So the gentleman was like, "Oh, well, if that's all you want to do is just pitch your tent, just go on right here by our RV,
Ah.
and yeah, totally, like just hang out, whatever." And I was like, "Oh, okay, cool." Well, then, so then we're sitting there by the fire that night, chit chatting. The other group of folks came over, and we get to talking because we're literally like the only two groups in this whole campground. And so they're like, Megan, you just have to stay. You have to stay and go kayaking with us tomorrow. And I was like,
Awesome.
I mean, I guess I don't have to pedal. It's like, what's one more day? And so, yeah, I ended up staying. We went on the river, this beautiful river, got to see a bald eagle,
Mm.
like the first time I've ever seen a bald eagle in its natural habitat. And that was really cool. And just being able to, again, meet people that love the outdoors, and that's their space where they can just enjoy and relax. And just, I think a lot of people that do enjoy the outdoors like that, we kind of all have that. We're all the same in that sense of like,
Right.
oh, we just want to be outdoors. We just
Yeah.
want to enjoy the moment outdoors instead of being on our phones inside watching TV or whatever the case may be. But yeah, I mean, yeah. So who would have known I would have been kayaking on Thursday and going down the river with newly found friends. So
Yeah. Well, and you
yeah,
never would have met them if you wouldn't have stayed the extra day after meeting the Reverend. So it's like it all
right.
happened with a purpose. I love it.
Yes, yeah, and that's what's so great. And I'm sure you know this as well. I mean, you're a well seasoned bike packer, and rider and everything. But it's those unexpected moments that
Yeah.
it's the trail magic. The trail magic is the best part, I think, about being on the road, is because you don't ever know when it's going to happen. You don't ever expect it, and it
Right.
just happens, and
Well,
it's like, okay.
and of course, on social media, you probably don't film yourself when you're sad or bummed out or like in the pouring rain. But everything
Hmm.
that you do post, you're always so happy and enjoying what you're doing. And it just makes someone who, like me, who likes being outside and doing the same thing, like, "Ugh, why am I not there right now doing that as well?"
Hmm. Well, and I will share. I mean, in fact, I was gonna. have like a giveaway of 1 week of like how many times has Megan cried this this tour so far. Um, um, but honestly, I haven't ran into any hard times at this point.
Oh, good. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, when I was in California back in May, coming out of the Mojave, or well, going, yeah, I rode from Mojave up to Visalia, just right outside of the Sequoia National Forest. There was a couple of nights I came out of some really big mountains. I came down and I'm literally in the middle of nowhere.
Mm.
It's getting dark. I still had like 13 miles to go to this one area. And it's like, oh my gosh, like I hate riding at night. I just absolutely hate it. I can't see real well. So I just don't like riding at dark. But anyways, it was just like I sat there on this curb crying because there's no Lyft, there's no Ubers. Like
Right.
I'm telling the Uber drivers on my ticket, like I'll tip you an extra $20. Like I just don't want to be sitting here. And so I haven't quite had those moments yet on this tour. So, but I mean, they do happen, but as far as right now, they haven't. But I will share those experiences because again, it's not all sunshine and rainbows out here,
Right. Yeah, for sure.
and
I mean,
I
it's
think.
we were celebrating. I think this was before we pushed record that you actually have a place to do laundry tonight. So it was like, that's a significant thing when you're out backpacking, like to actually have clean clothes.
Yeah, and if you follow me, I'm usually, just in my sports bra during the day because it is just absolutely hot out here. So
Mm-hmm.
a lot of my shirts won't necessarily get dirty over time. I mean, like,
Yeah.
I might put it on like riding out of the campground, but or wherever I'm at, out of the house, or wherever I'm staying that morning. But most of the time, I'm literally like it's already 85 degrees by 9 o'clock,
Oh,
10 o'clock.
geez.
So it's
Wow.
like, yeah, and it's humid. So most of the time, it's just my chamois. But again, my chamois I wash in the shower at night with me,
Yep.
same as my socks. So that's just kind of routine. You
Mm-hmm.
just you just get into these routines, and I can go a few days without, having a shower, but they are nice. And you wash up at night with your baby wipes, or you boil up some water, and
Yep.
you make do. Like if you want to be clean, you will be clean. So, but yeah, laundry is just nice because then, yeah, it's like the blankets and, just like my little hand towel that I have for for to dry off with after my showers and stuff. So, it is a nice, like it's
I
luxury
was
when
gonna
you're on
say,
the
yeah, it's
road.
it's more of a luxury than something you don't take it for granted. So,
Mm-mm,
um,
no.
okay, last question, and it may be too deep. I don't know if you have an answer for it, but I would love to know if you have experienced like significant takeaways so far from this adventure, like whether it's about yourself or other people or just the world in general.
I think what it is I have realized in myself that I know I can do it. And sometimes I will have self doubt. I mean, that it's just normal to have that sometimes and not.
Hmm.
I mean, I'm not trained up. I wasn't trained up when I left New York for this tour whatsoever. So, I think it's realizing that we can dig deep and
Yeah.
we can find our inner strength and we can keep pushing forward, and it is, it's again, it's one rotation at a time.
Hmm.
But I think most of it is just being able to realize that, like, you're gonna I know that for a fact I'm getting stronger. My legs are getting stronger each day that I'm out here. I'm, where I was climbing some of these baby hills in the beginning, now I'm just able to just go up them without, any
Hmm.
problems. And I think it's making sure that you're just not downplaying your own strengths,
Yeah.
because it's so easy to do, or comparing ourselves to other people and what they're doing or how strong they are. And it's like, well, that they're, yeah, sure, they're strong. I mean, that's them, and but that's not me. And so I know that I'm getting stronger each day, and knowing that I'm just going to keep pushing forward. And and just knowing that all of, like, with you and everybody that's out here following my adventure, and my
Hmm.
friends back home and my family, and it's just everybody that's rooting from afar. And then it's those moments of when you do have connections with strangers, that just fill you back up with joy, and that, that you can just keep going, and you're going to get there eventually. No matter how hard it is,
That's
you're
right.
eventually going to get there, and it's just one rotation at a time.
Yes.
So,
I love your
yeah,
mantra of one rotation at a
yeah.
time. That's awesome.
I'll have to get some stickers out to you because,
Yeah.
yeah. So, most definitely.
Tell the listeners again where they can go if they want to donate to the Be Good Foundation under
My landing page.
your landing page.
Yes. So yeah, they can just go directly. Well, they can also find it on if you want to go follow me on Instagram, it's Eat Play Bike.
Mm-hmm.
Link is on there as well for the Be Good Foundation and my landing page. But yeah, it's just going to be the begoodfoundation.org. And then you're going to see a little tab on there that says Big Apple to RPI Ride. And if you hit on that, again, it'll tell you kind of my bio. And then, there's a little spot on there that you can donate, and then, help get other people out on these amazing adventures that we all want to be on, And
Mm-hmm.
so, but yeah, they can go directly to the website. My link's in the bio of my Instagram, and yeah, I mean, they can go either place and donate and help others, because it's just not with the scholarships. Like, the grant money goes back to, again, to like other organizations, and also to like the mine advisory groups that are over in Laos that go out and they extract these live bombs that are
Mm-hmm.
still laying in the fields and the rivers and everything. So, again, it's an amazing organization that Rebecca has, just has done an amazing, wonderful things with.
I will put the links that you just spoke of in our show notes, but then I'll also put the link to her movie because that is an epic movie. I've watched it several times. It's really good.
Same.
So,
Yeah.
well, Megan, thank you so much for coming on the podcast and taking a break from cycling. And I know I'll be rooting for you as you make your way
Uh,
to RPI.
Oh my gosh, I know. Like, it's like, oh my god, like, it's hard to believe that I'll be rolling into Colorado in just a couple of weeks. So,
Wow.
yeah, I appreciate you and the time and everything, and I can't wait to watch more of your adventures as well.
Well, listeners, that's it for this week. Email me at murphologypodcast@gmail.com if you have a topic or the name of a cyclist you find interesting. Support my podcast at patreon.com/murphology and visit both my Facebook and Instagram pages for daily entertainment. I have more great episodes in the pipeline, so I hope you continue to be a Murphology podcast listener.